Hey everybody, how are you doing tonight? Happy Sunday to everybody. Missed you guys last Sunday, but I will definitely glad to be back. Hold on, give me 1 second. Just want to make sure we are live. All right, we are live. I got to make sure that we're live so when we finish this up, wrap this up, that it goes onto the YouTube and I'm not just talking to myself. But give me 1 second, sorry. But nonetheless, thank you guys for for reaching out last week and trying to see where I was at. I was just out of the YouTube office, but nonetheless, we are jumping in tonight to kind of talk about what we're kind of seeing in this housing market. Hey, good evening, David. How you doing this evening? Good evening from Omaha, Nebraska. How's it out there? How's the weather looking out there? So if you guys are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like as well, and let us know in the comments below how you got here. If you are watching us during a live stream, don't be shy to tap in and chat amongst our wonderful uh, family over here. Hey, MH08, he said, "Woo, long drive from Baton Rouge to Atlanta." You might be teleporting. You might be teleporting. Hey Angela, how you doing? How you doing? But yes, so let's just jump into this real quick. Hopefully you guys can see me. It's kind of dark. I don't know why my light is kind of dark, but if you guys don't know what's happening in this crazy housing market, things are definitely shifting, and I'm pretty sure we have been talking about this for months on end now. So you guys are probably um, getting sick of me kind of talking about this, but I just want to let you know, update you guys in regards to what's happening in the housing market, what we're kind of seeing. And if you are currently a seller on the market trying to sell your house, you should know that we are shifting, and we're shifting at a pace in which sellers are getting frustrated because they feel like I want to sell my house for top dollar. I can't sell it for what my next door neighbor might have got for about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when the market was just crazy, when interest rates were super low, and when people were just jacking up prices and paying over appraisal gaps, and everybody was just loving the market and just sucking, grabbing stuff from corporate investors to people maybe, selling their house, buying another house cash, or possibly some people pulling out their 401ks or any type of other investments to go and buy a house cash or do a conventional loan, FHA, however you might have purchased your house. Somebody is texting me. Sorry about that. And so, but now sellers are getting frustrated. They're saying that, we put our house up on the market. We need a certain amount in order to move on to the next house. Because that's what I'm hearing too when I talk to some sellers and you sit down and everybody does have a number in which they need, right? When they go to sell their house, they're like, okay, I need this number in order to progress to the next house or the next location or destination, wherever I want to go forward from this point. So a lot of people, because home prices are still high per se, depending on where you're at, even though they're coming down, they're still high. Some people are like, I still need X, Y, and Z to get out of this house into another house if I want to own another house. Some people might be okay with selling their house, going into rental properties. I've encountered that as well, where some home sellers are like, I just want to get rid of my house. I don't want a house no more. I'm sick and tired of the home maintenance. I'm sick and tired of the property taxes. I'm sick and tired of the insurance. So at this point, I just want to sell it and I want to go back to renting. I just prefer renting better than owning. So it's so many different mixtures of things happening when it comes to people trying to sell their house. But I am letting sellers know that we have to really look at the market, right? And we all know, and I know David knows this as well. MH08 knows this. Angela, you guys probably all know this because we talk about this all the time, that real estate is very local to your market and it's also local to the neighborhood in which you're in as well. So you never know. Your particular neighborhood might be seeing a hold and steady type of price point, while other neighborhoods might be seeing a decline, and then some of the neighborhoods might even be seeing a little jump per se. So you just don't know. But what we're experiencing a lot down here in this Metro Atlanta area, we are seeing a lot of sellers dropping their prices. Oh, my phone keep buzzing. Sorry, y'all. We had a lot of sellers keep dropping their prices, and we are seeing people being frustrated, pulling off the market. But they're also not only pulling it off, what they're doing is that they might be talking to their realtor, and the realtor might be telling them like, "Hey, take it off the market, and then we'll put it back on at a different price." And so it might look like they're delisting, but what they're doing is they're withdrawing, and then they're putting it back on as a lower price. If you guys just go to Zillow, you can usually catch, that they removed the listing and then put it back on at a lower price. Or I've even seen some listings put it back on at a higher price, and I'm like, what are you doing? We're seeing a decline, so why are we seeing an increase in your price? David said, what a seller needs or wants is a different number from what they're going to get in this market. Exactly. And so this is a conversation that we have to have, because people still have this idea of what they want, but we have to have this conversation. And that's why it's important when you go and sit down with a seller, you do ask them like, what price do they feel like they are thinking about, or that they feel like they need for their house in order to move to the next house, right? And then we ask these questions. We kind of see where their brain is at, what they're looking at, because a lot of people are looking at the Zillow's estimates and all these things, right? And then we'll sit down and we'll actually go through we'll go through it like number by number as far as the comparables and everything in the area to see like what it possibly should be placed on the market at. And then also, again, what a buyer might pay for it. You never know. So David said, we have that happening too. Cancel, relist. Okay, so same thing happening over there. Yeah, it's happening down here too. All right, let me get into the article. I know you guys are like, okay, Devon, get into the article. So it says, delisting surged nearly 50% as sellers who can't get their price quit the market in frustration. It says, after failing to find a buyer at the price they think they deserve, more home sellers are pulling their listings off the market altogether. It says the listings jumped 47% nationally in May from a year earlier, in a sign that sellers would increasingly rather wait than negotiate, according to Realtor.com. So some sellers are feeling like, okay, if I decide to pull my house off the market, I'm going to wait a year or two, and then I don't have to negotiate come next year, and I could possibly get the same price. Again, we don't know. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows where next year is going to be, right? You might say, oh, I'm going to wait a year or two later, and the prices might drop even more, or you might wait a year or two later, the prices might just stay, steady, or you might wait a year or two later, the prices might increase a little bit. I don't see, and this is just my opinion, I don't see prices increasing the jump in which we did during the pandemic. Like, I don't see it increasing 40%, 50%. I see it possibly going back to how real estate typically increases or appreciates over the year, about 3 to 4 to 5% a year. Well, that's what we see down here in Georgia. We see about 3 to 4 to 5% a year as far as real estate in a normal real estate market. I'm not sure about your market, David, how you guys usually typically increase with your real estate out there as far as appreciation. But that's typically what we see down here in Georgia. We've experienced a conniption or a craziness of numbers in the last, during the pandemic years, where appreciation, when I even looked at some of it, I was like, this is like 100% appreciation, 200% appreciation. What is going on? David said, same. Okay, same. All right. Yeah, because that's what we typically see down here in a normal market, normal appreciation in housing. That's what we typically see. I tell people, especially people, so this is a big one. So especially people who have houses that they don't live in, they have no one occupying the space at the moment, no one lives in the house, and they're just leaving it there vacant. The grass might be growing wild, the fascia underneath the roof might be cracking, the animals might be getting in the fascia board, the roof might be, the shingles might be curling up from the weather elements. Different things. The house is basically unoccupied, right? And I always tell people houses are like human bodies and just like cars, right? You have to continuously, I don't want to say nurture it, but you have to continuously kind of live in the space, or, per se, in order for it to kind of work well. Because once you kind of leave out of a house, things might start to break in. I know in a situation with one of the houses that we own in Pennsylvania, the plumbing, the pressure got low pressure in the plumbing and everything. So the toilets don't flush right no more. it's a lot of stuff that goes wrong in a house. So I tell people, if you have several houses and you're not living in a house and you've been thinking about selling the house, but you just been holding off just because you just want to quote unquote get appreciation. I'm like, we got to understand too that homes also depreciate. I know people feel like homes are not a depreciating asset, but when you don't live in them and they start to wither away, they might appreciate in the sense of how the market is going. Like this whole pandemic helped the appreciation per se. If you owned a house from like 1960s and you've been living in a different house for so many years per se, and you haven't lived in this house and it's just been sitting empty, you might, be able to run away if you bought that house, say for like $20,000. And now even when a flipper is coming in or somebody renovating, fixing, flipping it, and they can get an after repair value for about, let's say $300,000, you might be able to sell that house for 150. So you might see that appreciation there. But if you're, but over time, if people as inflation is going up and it's costing more to do things and the house is sitting there, you got to understand the numbers. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. So MHOA say, got to keep the dust bunnies down. Exactly. Got to keep the dust bunnies down. Got to keep them out. Got to keep maintaining the house, I should say, maintaining the house. Because if you don't live there, who else is going to want to live there? And you don't have the option of allowing it to be bought by not just an investor, right? If you keep the house up, if you maintain the house, even if it's an older house per se, you have the option of possibly allowing like a first-time home buyer to buy it for like a FHA loan, or possibly a buyer, a home buyer in general, whether it be FHA, VA, conventional. But if you just let it sit there and wither away, 9 times out of 10, all you're going to get is an investor. You're not going to be able to get a first-time home buyer, especially with an FHA or a VA, because they're not going to qualify because of all the repairs needed. And then in turn, what you're going to end up doing is going to have to sell it lower, because an investor needs to make a return on their investment. That's how, they're looking at the numbers. Hey, what's going on, Corey West Clark? GE, my notifications are not working. Yeah, I don't know. YouTube is weird. I even had people who subscribed to me. They reached out to me and said they got unsubscribed. So YouTube will unsubscribe you, and they will also take the notifications off. So I tell people, always look and just check and see if you're still subscribed. If you like, like what we're doing over here in this channel, like the conversations we're having, just check and see if you're still subscribed, because YouTube will unsubscribe you. So, but I appreciate you jumping in and joining anyway, Croy. If you have any questions, anything you want to kind of mention, don't be shy, and definitely put it in the live chat while we're here. So let's continue on the article, because I will go down the whole tangent of just a regular conversation without even reading. It's just because, this is real estate is something I'm passionate about, as far as even helping people. Really, most of it is helping people, making them understand. So I will go on a tangent down a whole rabbit hole of real estate and talk all day long. My dad even knows, every time I call him, every day from day to night, I'm talking real estate. It's bad, y'all. It's bad. Economic research team's latest monthly housing trends report. Year-to-date, delistings are up 35% from the same period in 2024. The increase is partly due to the overall expansion in inventory, which was up 29% in June from a year earlier. Newly listed homes increased 6.2% from a year ago, but remained flat over the past 2 months. It says still delistings are outpacing new listings, with 13 homes delisted in May for every 100 homes hitting the market, up from 10 in the spring of 2024 and 2023, and just 6 in 2022. The increase in delistings follows a surge in price reductions, as some sellers with unrealistic price expectations faced a softer market with limited buyers. Now it seems that some sellers would rather wait out the market than accept a lower price for their home. And like as we kind of said earlier, you can wait, but you don't know what the waiting is going to get you. Like I had a situation, right? Last year I was working with this wonderful buyer, this older lady, right? And we went into a community. It was a townhouse community, and it was a house that was owned by an investor, but he was also the real estate agent over this property. And he priced it at 205. And so he priced it at 205. I did the comparables in the area. I saw the shift. I saw what was happening. I saw, what people were buying those townhouses for. Also seeing any type of concessions being given. So I reached out to the agent. I don't know. We probably talked about this already on the live before. I definitely talked about it with my dad. So I reached out to the agent. I think my dad might be asleep because I texted him and he didn't jump on. So he probably fell asleep. I reached out to the agent anyway. And I said to the agent, I said, hey, would you be willing to, like, we're going to put an offer in and it's going to be under what you currently have it priced at, but looking at the comparables, looking at the recent sales, because we took recent sales, we went back as far as 3 to 6 months. I think the recent one was 6 months. It was about 3 to 4 sales. I'm not an appraiser, but as an agent, we can kind of tell what's moving in the area, what might it appraise for, blah blah blah. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, we're going to put an offer in and we're going to come under what you have listed at due to the research in which I pulled up in the neighborhood. And so he was like, oh, okay. So I submitted the offer. When he was at 205, I submitted at 193 and I asked for 3,000 in concessions for my buyer because she was okay. Because I was going to tell her, let's do 190, 3,000, off of that. But she was like, no, let's go. She's like, because we know with the mortgage, like the lender talked to her as well. We had a conversation, and it's not really much of a difference. $3,000, not a difference in your mortgage per se, right? So we did the 193, 3,000. I gave it to the agent. The agent, he was like, my house is worth 205. I was like, no, it's not, sir. He was like, yes, it is. And so we went back for it. So then I got on the phone with him. I said, sir, your house not worth 105. And 205. And he was like, well, you can look at what the tax assessor said. I said, sir, if we go to the county tax assessor records, it's always going to be lower. Typically, it's usually lower. If you go to your tax assessor, what the county is assessing compared to an appraiser, a lender appraiser, it's typically lower. I don't know. Some people's counties might be different, but typically in Georgia, it's lower. I don't know how it is out in Nebraska, David, when your tax assessor comes in. But anyway, I said it's going to be lower. He was like, he said, well, we can go off of what the tax assessment says. I said, okay. So I guess he didn't think I was going to do it. And I already knew what the number was, but I just wanted to call down to verify because I already saw what the number was in the tax assessment. So I called down there to verify it with the county. They said, yes, it's 187. I said, okay, no problem. So then I was like, can you send me that over in an email? So the tax assessor, she sent it over to me. I called the agent back on the phone. I said, so you said we can go off of the tax assessment number? He was like, yeah. I said, it's 187. And he was like, no, it's not. I said, give me 1 second. I'm going to send it over to your email. I sent it over to his email. Then he's like, well, I would never take that low. I would never take that low. I'm like, sir, you just told me that you would go off of the tax assessment. So I just tell people, just be mindful. I know that's kind of a long story to get back to this whole thing. It says now it seems like some sellers would rather wait, the market out. But now I went back to look at his property. He took it off the market, put it back on the market for 190. He put it back on for like 195. He took it off because this was last year. He still hasn't sold it yet. He took it off, put it back at 195, took it off again, put it back at 193, took it off again. Now it's at like 185. Go figure. My buyer, she left. She was like, pew, like we left because we're not going to overpay for something. Like, of course, we can't. At the end of the day, we can't predict where things are going to fall, right? But when we see a market shifting, we're going off of the data in the shifting market. So that's what we were doing. But to each his own. David said exactly. Assessed value does not equal market value. Exactly. And this is what I was trying to tell the guy. He like, this is crazy because he's been an agent per se in the business for a long time, but I think he deals more with, from what I saw when I looked up his information, it looks like he was buying a lot of foreclosed properties, and he just got his license in the sense of trying, so he could list his own properties that he was buying. And I think he owns like a shop or something. Because when I called him, he was like helping a customer in his store. So, you get some agents, and I'm not faulting those agents that, do business on the side, but you got to be a little careful because that's sometimes what happens. David's laughing. He says, sometimes your best offer is the first offer. Yes. And that's what people don't understand. Your best offer is definitely sometimes that first offer because you don't know. You don't know when the next one's coming in. And especially if it's been sitting on the market for a long time, you just don't know. So sometimes it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Let me entertain this offer. If the offer falls through, at least I can say after they had an inspection, after we went through the ringer per se, I can let the next person that comes along say, hey, we had an inspection, things look clear, blah, blah. Of course, get your own inspection, but I already know what I needed to fix prior to the last person that came through. So I kind of made those adjustments, or I know in my head that I'm going to give some concessions for X, Y, and Z things that's going to come up. So then like you become more prepared in case that deal falls through for the next buyer. So I don't know. To each his own. MHOA said assess is usually lower than market in Colorado as well. Okay. So it kind of seems like it's the same thing around in different states. Agents can be just as delusional as any other seller. Yes, they can. They definitely can. They definitely can. And sometimes it's crazy because I think even people feel like, even because some agents will be like, I've been in this business for 30 years. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm not knocking how long you've been in the business. I haven't been in the business for 30 years, so I can't, say that. But I'm not knocking how long somebody's been in the field, right? My job is not to come in here and to make it seem like I'm overpowering you with how long you've been in the field. My job is to help this client, whether it be a buyer or seller, to make sure they're not getting, basically they're not paying too high or paying high at all, and then make sure the seller is getting the best as much money they can get out as far as what they need, so. But yeah, he said all about one word, greed. Yes, it is. My land assess is higher than the structure. Yeah, typically that's down here in Georgia too. Typically the land sometimes depending it'll assess higher than the structure on the land, because of course we know land is more valuable than structure, because most times you can't move land per se, but it can be eroded. Things can happen to the land, different things like that. But typically your land is going to be assessed higher. But let me get back to the article. Sorry, y'all. He said, unlike past housing cycles where falling prices pressured under water homeowners to sell, today's homeowners benefit from record high levels of home equity, so they have the flexibility to wait it out. And so this sentence right here scares me too. So we got to understand what type of home buyers, right? So they're saying like, home buyers now have so much equity in their homes that they can wait it out. Well, it depends. If the home buyer bought in 2022, 2023, 2024, unless they bought in cash, unless they pay half of the loan down, they don't have no equity. So can they wait it out? Some home sellers might not be able to wait it out. Some of them might be facing possible foreclosure. Some of them might feel like they lost their job. So they have to get out, right? So we got to put stuff more in context, because yes, you get those homeowners that bought years ago or might have bought before this frenzy, right? That's have that equity in that space to play around with it. But then you get those homeowners who bought in that frenzy of the pandemic, where they bought at the high of 2022, 2023, 2024, and they don't have high record levels of equity. In fact, some of their equity is being stripped because especially what's happened down here in the Metro Atlanta area, and we talk about this all the time. There are corporate investors who bought into these communities, and they're unloading their properties, reorganizing their portfolios, and with that happening, they're stripping people's equities because these investors bought cash and they bought at a lower interest rate. Well, the interest rate don't matter when you buy cash, but if let's say those corporate investors, but then the mom and pop investors who bought a lower interest rate and they pay some down or whatever, they can afford to be able to, drop those prices in the house just to get out. So we gotta put stuff in context. Clark, is it right for a seller to list the house at a lower price, see what that there is good interest, then take the house off the market and resist for higher price? So I typically wouldn't tell somebody to do that. So it's almost like I guess you're just trying to bait to see what you can get. That's what it sounds like. It says, Clark, is it right for a seller to list the house at a lower price, see that there is good interest, then take the house off the market and relist higher? I typically wouldn't say do that. Some people might do that as far as just to see if there's interest in the house. I would say because what happens if you list it at a lower price and then you get somebody that's interested in the house, they try to put an offer and then you snatch it off the market. I don't know how that would work in regards to like contracts. So I don't know. I typically wouldn't do that. I feel like the best way to possibly do it might be to because what's going to happen too, right? You're going to list it lower, and then in turn, when you relist it back online at a higher price, Zillow captures all the data now too. So a buyer is going to be like, oh, it's listed lower, and then all of a sudden they're going to see this increase, and the house going to be higher, and then you might get some buyers that might be resistant to buy it because they're going to be like, well, I don't want to, this was a perfect price for me, and now they're trying to charge higher. So you might end up losing possible buyers because you did that. I would just say if it's something that if you just want to get some type of see what type of interest might be there, just kind of put it on the market at market value, fair market value, maybe at the lowest point of that fair market value, not too low. But let's just say your area is projecting, let's just say 350 to 375 for your homes, depending on square footage, all those type of things like specs and different things like that, renovations per se, whatever. And say you'd be like, okay, well, at least if I put it in at, let's just say 335 and my home's really worth 340, when I put it back on the market, I could put it at 340, you know? I would say like undercut it maybe 5,000, 10,000, but I wouldn't do like a drastic low price because once you put it back in the MLS and it goes back online, Zillow's going to see that mass, what's it called? Jump in a percentage, and you might actually lose some buyers. So I wouldn't do that, but to each his own. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't do that. I would honestly advise the seller not to do that, but that's just, my opinion. Sometimes they have been in their first year 30 times. Yes, it's so funny because this is one instructor that I go and I'll take her classes, because if you guys don't know, as real estate agents, we take continuing education classes. And I take a lot of classes. So sometimes my clients probably like, when they reach out to me, they give me a call. I might be in a class, so I might have to text them, say, hey, I'm in the class, can I call you back after? They probably like, Devon takes so many daggone classes. But no, I just like, being around other colleagues of mine, because I like to talk real estate. I like to, be abreast on what's happening and what's kind of changing. So yeah, and it's the one instructor in there, she's been in the business for 54 years. And she was like, every year, she's like, it's my first year. She's like, what she said? She said, similar to what you said, this is my first year and 54 times or whatever. So she's funny. David said, agree. It is best to list at market value right from the start. Yeah, I definitely would list at market value. I'm the buyer. The seller is playing games with the house. Oh yeah, I would run. I would run, Croy. I would run. If the seller's playing games with the house, it's telling me two things. One, for my opinion, I could be wrong. It's just me. It's like, if you can't even put the house on the market according to what you must, do you know your numbers? Are you baiting people just to play games? And then 3, how trustworthy are you? That's how I would look at it. I know that might be all over the place, but I feel like somebody that likes to play those games like that, bait and switch, and play around with the house and numbers and all this stuff to try to get interest and pull and all this stuff. I'm like, it's like, no, I don't trust you. What else you gonna tell me? You don't got a seller's property disclosure? So I people like to play games. He said, if they want to play games, they can play solitary. MHOA, that's funny. He said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Exactly. Oh, Lord, people, they gonna win no prize. They ain't gonna get nobody to buy their house. It says, this allows many sellers to withdraw their homes from the market if their asking price isn't met. Right here it says Phoenix leads the nation in delistings. I don't live in Phoenix, so if anybody lives in Phoenix, Arizona, who might be watching this live or watching this on the playback, please let us know what's happening in Phoenix. It says nationally, 13 homes were delisted in May for every 100 that were newly listed. In Phoenix, the ratio was 30, the highest in the nation. So Phoenix is over here. Miami's doing something. I guess they're high over here too. I'm surprised Georgia's not in here, but I keep telling people, and no one wants to bring it up, but I'm telling you, Atlanta, Georgia is dropping. And I'm always surprised when I read some of these statistics that we're not in this, in some of them. It's just baffling to me. It says the trend is especially noticeable in the South and the West, where inventory has surged back above pre-pandemic levels and prices are flat or falling. Phoenix led the nation in delistings in May with 30 homes pulled, and we read that up there. It says with the median list price essentially unchanged over the past 2 years, it's clear that many sellers remain anchored to peak era expectations. Cremo said. He says, while the market may be becoming more buyer-friendly, sellers still hold a trump card, delist home and fish for the high asking price at a later date. Yeah, they're going to be surprised. Some people might be surprised when they can get that higher price later on. It's like, don't play games, people. Don't play games. Because you don't know what tomorrow might bring. You don't know what next year might bring. You don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So, you might get lucky. You might turn around. Uh-oh, my phone's buzzing. You might turn around, you might get lucky, you might be able to get higher next year, but we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. Typically, yes, we know real estate typically it typically appreciates, right? So we will see appreciation, but at the numbers that I think a lot of these sellers are thinking, like, I'm gonna pull it off the market and come next year I'm going to get way more. And I don't think they understand that pandemic market of that jump in those percentages, that's over. It's over. We're going back to normal appreciation. So yeah, so say if the typical house in your neighborhood, if everybody starts selling, bringing your property value down per se, right? And then say you at one time your neighborhood was getting $400,000 for your type of house, but now you're only getting 350, and you're like, well, I want 400,000, so I'm gonna pull it off the market and I'm gonna wait till next year. Well, unless you see a turn next year, and with the appreciation typically being at 3 to 5% a year, the 350 ain't gonna go, but so much to maybe 355, 365. I don't know. So you're not going to you might not get your 400,000 unless we see a pandemic again. Honestly, I don't know, but I don't know. People want to play games. David said that ship has sailed. Yes, it has sailed. It has definitely sailed. But people are still like caught up in this whole thing of thinking that we're in that market still, which is crazy to me. So it says inventory hits new post-pandemic high. Even with more homeowners withdrawing their listings, buyers still have a greater number of homes to choose from than at any time since the COVID-19 pandemic. Nationally, active listings topped 1 million for the second straight month in June, putting inventory about 13% below pre-pandemic norms, but steadily closing the gap. Inventory grew in all 4 major U.S. regions in June, with the West seeing a 38% jump and the South up nearly 30%. Inventory also grew in the Midwest by 21.3% and the Northeast by 17.6%. So inventory is climbing, you guys. It's climbing, which is bringing more options to the market, which in turn will soften home prices. Depending on the area per se, it will soften home prices with the inventory rising. However, some inventory that's coming to the market, all of it's not good inventory. You get some of these, like I said, down here in Metro Atlanta, we have a lot of investors who bought a lot of property. So some of this inventory is trash. I'm gonna be honest. When I go in some of these houses, I'm like, this is trash. But again, I'm not buying a house. I advise the client as such, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at this. Because I like to be honest and open with what I see. But yeah, so you're getting inventory, you're getting a surge of stuff, but some of these investor grade ones are not the best. Of course, you're getting new construction down here in the South now. A lot of our new construction is coming due. They're popping up. We have a lot of new construction down here in the South, and Georgia per se too. So that's being laid out. A lot of move-in ready, new construction. And then we are getting people who might have bought in 2022, 2023, either relocating, lost jobs, things are happening. They need to get out. So they're popping up. So it's a lot of different factors kind of popping up. Okay, I just feel like the seller knows that I'm interested and they're using that against me. I'm just going to chill and wait. What will be, will be. Exactly, Croy. I would definitely just chill and just wait and just see what happens. I don't want you to overpay for something because somebody else is trying to get something. I would just wait and see if they got any interest. You can call their bluff. That's what me and one of my buyers did. We had a situation happen where we were calling. She was trying to get into this house. We went to the house one time. They didn't have the garage door was shut. And then they had a sign on it that the person had a dog. But typically, if you walk in the house and the person has a dog, you'll hear the dog kind of barking, moving around. Did I freeze? I think I froze. Oh, Lord. Did I freeze you guys? I froze. Let me take this off the screen. I might have froze. Did my computer freeze? Let me know if you guys can hear. I might have froze. Let me take this off the screen. We'll wrap that article up, take that off the screen because I kind of froze. But yeah, So what happened with that situation is basically the buyer, the listing agent, it was more the agent, probably wasn't even the seller, but the listing agent basically went in the house had we toured the whole house. There were some things the matter with the house. Why do I keep freezing? All right, let me take some of this stuff off my screen, y'all. Sorry. I think I got too many things open on my screen. It's just freezing. I don't know why. Look, I go away for a week, take a time off, and then I come back and it's just playing games with me. All right, so yeah, but anyway, let's just get over to this other article, and then we'll go back to the conversation because it seems like I need to get all these articles off my screen. So let's go over to article real quick. So this is an open letter. It says an open letter to overpriced sellers. So the Sacramento appraisal blog. I don't live in Sacramento, California, but I thought this was what they kind of wrote to sellers. What did MHOA say? New construction and HOA nobody wants to be in. Yeah, a lot of new construction, especially down here in Georgia, the HOAs are a little high, or even in the condo building. So people are kind of running away from that. So we're seeing those things sit a little longer. But it's still surprising down here in Georgia that people are still buying in these communities with these high HOAs that don't do anything. You don't get any amenities, which is crazy. But to each his own. It says an open letter to overpriced sellers. It says, dear sellers, if you're overpriced, I have some thoughts for you today. This is coming from a good place, and I want you to have success in selling your home if that's what you really want to do. Scroll by topic and let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. I hope this helps. So it says, at this time of the year, the market starts to slow, and we've been seeing a growing club of sellers who are overpriced and need to find the market through price reductions. Many areas around the country are still quite competitive, but there is no mistaking that the market is different this year with more supply in just about every location. It says more inventory is changing the vibe. We are no longer at pandemic lows. It's not 2021 any longer. We are seeing more new listings across the country, and it's something we've also seen locally. Listings have increased much more in portions of Texas and Florida, especially. So it's important to recognize the trend isn't the same everywhere. Right. It says the first visual is from Lance Lambert. So you see the visual. It says 1 year change in active housing inventory for sale. Metro shifts between May 2023 and 2024. So this is 2024 data. As you guys know, our data, we lag behind in data. He said freeze. Uh-oh, is it frozen still? I think I might be frozen. Sorry, you guys. My computer, I think I have so many things open, so I might be frozen. I apologize, you guys. Sorry. This is when he said, I'm not a huge Zillow fanboy, but I think the visual packs a punch to show the different locations don't have the same temperature. So he's kind of showing the different locations in regards to like strong buyer market is in purple. So we have all this down here. We have some parts of Texas down here, and then it's saying strong sellers market still, all this stuff. But we know that this is shifting. Again, this was taken in 2024, so we're in 2025. So this information is kind of a year behind. So we're not going to really dig too far into this information because David said, you're good. Okay, I'm good. Okay, cool. We're not going to dig too far in this information because we are past this information. But this was something that the appraisal kind of wrote about that. It says some sellers feel like they're losing value when the price is lowered. I get it, but if it was never worth that much to begin with, value isn't lost. The sooner this is acknowledged, the easier it is going to be to sell. A price reduction is simply one step closer to being able to sell. So, and it's basically we're talking about as a seller, even giving like concessions right here. It says in many cases, lowering prices is more meaningful than offering concessions. The dream is to say the seller will give a credit for closing costs with a full price offer, but that's not exactly enticing when a home is really overpriced. Keep in mind, builders are often able to command lofty prices, but that's because their bag of tricks includes 5.5 rate credits, all that stuff. So basically, he was seeing here what we were kind of talking about before in regards to even giving those concessions. We have builders down here in Georgia offering 4% concessions, 3% concessions. They're even cutting prices on the homes and also giving incentives to $20,000 incentives, $30,000 incentives. So as a normal seller kind of coming on the market, you might not have the same power as a builder per se, who has that, they have their inventory, they have their lender, they're finessing how they're doing their buy downs, they're doing all these different, as the guy was saying, having these bag of tricks to give the buyer to kind of get them in there. And then also, which is unfortunate, when some of these buyers are sitting down with these builders and they're looking at their monthly mortgage after the estimates come out, some of these builders might not be telling them how much the taxes might be, and they might be basing off the land. So that buyer might be thinking that, oh, my mortgage is only this amount, when in reality, come next year, or depending on how you're getting assessed when it comes to your taxes in the state that you live in, your mortgage might increase. So it's all these different variables going on compared to if somebody has a house. You're a normal seller, you can't really give per se really, the buy down, the interest rate. Yeah, you can give some concessions as far as, any type of any money per se towards closing costs, but then that buyer has to talk to their lender to see how they can exactly use said closing costs, whether to buy their rate down or, pay like HOA and dues or whatever they do with that closing cost, right? But also, you might, if you're a seller trying to sell now and you bought, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, you might not have no space to give any type of closing cost concessions. So it's a lot of variables, a lot of different things, but I think some sellers have to be mindful. If you are on the resale market and you're not a builder, you're competing with builders right now, and builders are lowering their home prices, and they're also giving interest rates. I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'm not, I'm just putting Lennar on the screen because they're one of the biggest builders. I'm not saying use Lennar. I'm just saying like they're one of the biggest builders. Why is my screen? So, I'm trying to make it bigger. Now it's freezing. What is it doing? Now it's saying there's nothing available because I made my screen bigger. Sorry, you guys. Let me get one. All of a sudden, there's nothing available because I made my screen bigger. But anyway, as you can see here, it's like these builders are offering. I don't know if y'all can see it because my screen is so small now. So I could kind of show you guys the price cuts. Okay, so when I make it bigger, you can't. It's saying there's nothing available. When I make it smaller, it's something available. So what I'll do is I'll just have to read out the price cuts to you guys because that's what the computer wants to do. MHOA said, well, the flip next door is now listed for rent for $26.95 a month. We'll have to see if it's just got sold, though. I saw the owner over there a couple of days ago. Okay, yeah, let us know. No, next Sunday, come back in. Hopefully, you'll know if it got rented out or if it got sold, depending on if it's currently pending, for either rent or sold. Let us know if they got that $26.95. Is that what you're kind of seeing? Is that like the going rates in your area? And then when it comes to this particular house, how many bedrooms it is, how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, and what are you seeing normally in your area when it comes to your the rentals over there? Because I'm pretty sure that that owner has to cover. They want to make enough to try to cash flow. And whether it's a couple $100s a month, they want to make enough to cover those taxes, to cover that insurance, to kind of cash flow and put some money aside too for any maintenance or repairs in the future. It's $2,700 a month is in this neighborhood. He's dreaming. Okay. So what are you typically seeing in your neighborhood as far as your rental? So $2,700 a month is a lot. Okay. So he's dreaming. Okay. So he's in La La Land. So everybody's in La La Land, even, but I get probably why he has to do it. I don't know how much he bought the house for. I don't know how much of a loan he took it out. I don't know if he bought it cash. I don't know what his numbers look like, how he bought the house. Was it cash? Was it a loan? Typically, if it's that high, I feel like it might be a loan. He might have bought it, a conventional loan. I don't know, because if you're seeing a certain price point for rentals in that area, and this is not the market value in that area, this $26.95 is not market value. It means that you might have and I don't know, I could be wrong. I feel like he might have a loan and he's trying to cover the cost. That's just how I'm looking at it. I could be wrong because I can't see what he bought it for. So like Lennar right here, you have them. This is I don't know if you guys can't really see it, but $25,000 price cut, $13,000 price cut, $22,000 price cut, $25,000 price cut, $33,000 price cut, $18,000 price cut. So some of these price cuts might not be like huge price cuts, but you guys got to also understand too, outside of these price cuts, they're also giving, closing costs, incentives, and different things like that. And I'll pull up something in my MLS real quick. Let me see. It's not much of a price cut per se, but you guys can see what's kind of happening in the back end as far as what you might not see on, let's say, on their website and on Zillow per se, what people are doing. So as you see right here, you see the list. It was listed at 456, 130. They sold for 415. They gave $20,000 in incentives. So in total, that's about, what's that about? Let's say 456, 130, and then you minus 415. That's 41,000, and then you minus another 20,000. So then total, that's about 60 something thousand, 60 something thousand dollars. That was kind of reduced here per se, right? Even though the other 20,000 was in the form of closing costs, but also this builder is given an interest rate of like 4%. So you're getting a reduce in the sales price. You're getting $20,000 in closing costs. You're getting a lower interest rate. And then on top of that, like I said, some of these buyers, unfortunately, hopefully they sat down when they got this property at the table and they asked the sales agent to actually make their taxes comparable to any other builds in the community or any other townhouses similar to this community, to kind of assess where those taxes might end up being at, to estimate it for like the escrow. I don't know. I'm just saying hopefully. But you're seeing like this is what builders are doing. This is the tricks they have that sometimes resale people or home sellers they don't have. So this is why you have to be mindful if you are trying to sell your house in this market, instead of being frustrating and just pulling off the market. Understand the market, understand what's going on, and go about it mindfully. Don't play games. Don't list the price. Don't list the house high. We're not in that type of market. Well, in Georgia, I should say. In Georgia, we're not in a market where you're just going to throw something on the market at a high price and think, oh, I'm an anomaly. I'm going to get whatever I want to get because my house is just so great. I did so many renovations and so many repairs, and my grass is just beautiful, and I'm going to get this price for it. People don't care no more. Like, yes, buyers, your house is worth whatever buyer's going to pay for it. But in this market, I seen it happening in 2023 where more buyers are becoming even more like pickier when buying a house. They're like, okay, these high prices, the way these interest rates are rising, like I want this and this and this and this and this in this house. I want these type of windows. I want this type of flooring. I want this type of carpeting. I want this type of style house. I want this. I want to be in this neighborhood, blah, 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 before I pay these prices. So just got to be mindful. Be mindful. Let me see. MH08 said he paid $250,000 for it, dumped into and about $100,000, was asking $495, dropped in it 10,000, then took it off the market. Wow. Well, I wonder, so are houses in your neighborhood that are similar to this house? You said he's claiming 4-bedroom, but I've been in the house. I don't think so. Okay. So are houses in your neighborhood around that price point if it was a 4-bedroom? And you said he's claiming it's a 4-bedroom. So in that 4th bedroom that he's saying per se, what exists in that 4-bedroom? Is there a window? Is there a closet? I think with it being built up to code, because it's a flip now, that he has to build in order to he has to build it up to code according to this this year's standards per se. So with it being up to code this year's standards, he has to have that. Well, according to our appraiser down here in Georgia, you have to have that window in the closet. Back in the day, let's say if your house was built, let's say in the 50s or the 40s, maybe they didn't have closets back then. They just had windows, and so they still could be labeled as a bedroom if it wasn't renovated per se or built up to per se code. But yeah, so I don't know if that makes sense, but so I don't know how the house looked, but you say he claims it's a 4-bedroom, and so what are typical 3 bedrooms, I should say, in your area going for, or 4 bedrooms going for? Are they going for that $495 price? Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Thank you, David. Thank you. I always forget to say that. Please, you guys, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, whether you're watching it now or watching it later on. And please don't forget to comment below if you watch it on the replay. It just helps to push us through the algorithm some more, to get out there, to talk to more people, to have, more conversations, and allow more people to kind of join us on these lives and just join into this wonderful chat that we have amongst all these wonderful people that join in conversation on Sunday. LOL, not even 3 bedrooms. Oh, not 3 bedrooms. He said maybe a 1 bedroom and a half. Oh, Lord, that's not good. So Well, what are 1 bedroom and a halves going for in your area? Because almost $500,000. That's crazy for a 1 bedroom and a half. But you are in Denver, so I know Denver is pricey. So I don't know. Is that the going rate in Denver? um, let's get over to the builder sentiment real quick. So like we were talking about builders, so the sentiment of builders have come out as well in regards to, the market. Sorry, in regards to the market as well. All right, so it says, so the builder sentiment is low. It says builder sentiment at third lowest reading since 2012. And a further sign of declining builder sentiment, the use of price incentives increased sharply in June as the housing market continues to soften. Builders' confidence in the market for newly built single-family homes was 32 in June, down 2 points from May, according to the National Association of Home Builders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index released today. The index has only posted a lower reading since 2012 and December 2022, when it hit 31 in April 2021 at the start of the pandemic, where it plunged more than 40 points to 30. Buyers are increasingly moving to sidelines due to elevated mortgage rates and tariff and economic uncertainty, said the National Home Builder Association. It says to help address affordability concerns and bring hesitant buyers off the fence, a growing number of builders are moving to cut prices, as we kind of mentioned, and we kind of went real quick through the, well, I don't know if you guys can see the prices on Lennar website, but we kind of went through there where they were slashing prices, and I just gave you that example in my MLS down here in Georgia, where the builders are slashing prices, so they're allowed, as the last article said, they're playing in their bag of tricks, right? As a reseller, you might not have those options. Well, some of you guys probably do have the option. You just don't want to exercise it. If you have enough equity, if you bought your house years and years ago, and you have it like that type of equity sitting in your house, and if you sell your house, you're going to get $300 or $200 or $400,000 out of the sale of your house. You have that space to kind of play along with the builder and pull out your bag of tricks. But some people just don't want to do it. So again, it just depends on if you want to sell your house or not. And you might not have to pull out your bag of tricks. You might be okay with, and you'll probably, you might get an offer where you don't have to do any tricks like the builders, Indeed, the latest HMI, which is the Home Market Index survey, also revealed that 37% of builders reported cutting prices in June, the highest percentage since the National Association of Home Builders began tracking this figure on a monthly basis in 2022. This compares with 34% of builders who reported cutting prices in May and 29% in April. Meanwhile, the average price reduction was 5% in June, the same as it's been every month since late last November. And yeah, that's true. When I kind of did the numbers out, even the property that I showed you guys on the MLS, when I did numbers, even with those incentives, it factored about like 8%, 9% as far as the price cut was about, I think, like 7%. And with those, I think 8%, those incentives kind of brought it to like the 8-9%. So it's not a huge cut per se. It's not a huge jump in percentage, and those builders have the space to do so because they're creating their own price points. So they have that space to do so. But yeah. It says the use of sales incentives was 62% in June, up 1 percentage point from May. It says rising inventory levels and prospective home buyers who are on hold waiting for affordability conditions to improve are resulting in weakening price growth in most markets and generating prices declines for resales in growing numbers of markets. Let's see. It says derived from a monthly survey the National Association Home Builder Association has been conducting more than 35 years. So they're talking about how they kind of rate their stuff. It says the National Association of Home Builders, Wells Fargo HMI, gauges builder perceptions of current single-family home sales and sales expectations for the first 6 months as good, fair, or poor. The survey also asks builders to rate traffic of prospective buyers as high to very high, average or low, or very low to very low. Scores for each component are then used to calculate a seasonally adjusted index where any number over 50 indicates that more builders view conditions as good than poor. It says all three of the major HMI indices. Wait, am I saying it right? Sorry if I said it wrong, y'all. Posted losses in June. HMI index gauging current sales conditions fell 2 points in June to a level of 35. The component measuring sales expectations in the next 6 months dropped 2 points lower to 40, while the gauge charting traffic of prospective buyers posted a 2-point decline to 21, the lowest reading since November 2023. So basically, like as we kind of mentioned earlier, builders are doing things in order to get buyers in the door. MHA said he did put on an addition which blocks part of my city view, so I'm quite biased. Oh Lord, I hope he got that addition permitted. You should go. I don't want to be a Karen, as they say, but you should go on the public records and see if he has it permitted. Because if it's not permitted, he gonna have the city they gonna come and they might either fine him for it not being permitted, or they might ask him to go and get it permitted correctly, or they might tell him to take it, or won't have to take it down. So he said, not sure if the addition has windows or closets. Okay. Says, I would put this neighborhood in the 700s, 900 range. I'm really quite paying attention over the past year. Okay. Yeah. He said, I really quit paying attention over here. Okay. So yeah, so that's pretty high. That's a whole $900, $800 difference, or dang near $1,000 difference as far as what he wants for a rental. That's crazy. Now I work from home. I saw the inspector show up. Also, just saw the addition in the list on the. Okay, so it's permitted then. Yeah, so he got it permitted. Yeah, I was like, I don't want to be a Karen, but I'm like, hey, shoot. I'll be telling sometimes, because some sellers will I'll talk to some sellers and they'll show me. I'll go in their house. Like, of course, I to inspect the house, and I walk through the house, and then I'll before I go over there to meet them, right, I'll go inside the public records. I'll pull everything in public records, so when I show up there, I can make sure I see the same thing in public records state, and see if there was, and if they did have anything changed, see if it's permanent. And I'll show up at the house and I'll see like another room, and I'll be like, so is this permanent? And they'll be like, oh. I'll be like, yeah, so that when an appraiser goes in, they're going to take it off of the public, the assessed, they're going to take it off the public records as far as what's been assessed when it comes to your property value. So if you have an addition, you might want to go get it permitted through the, the city, to make sure they add that in. So when you go to sell it, you possibly can get a higher price according to fair market value with other homes similar to your home. But some people want to listen, some people don't. So some people listen, some people don't. LOL, I like to know where the second bath is. A hole in the basement floor. Oh no, not a hole in the basement floor. So the second bath, you said, is it in the basement? Is it actually inside the basement? The second bath? That's crazy. So I'm guessing if there's a second bath in the possible basement, that means that he put a bedroom down there. Let's go to as far as why we might be getting some of these buyers sitting on the sidelines, and why these sellers might be delisting, because we are seeing a lot of uncertainty in this economy. So on dailyjobcuts.com, you can see that job cuts are being made a lot. And so this is what's causing possibly some uncertainty as far as buyers. July 20th, 2025, says the Fine Art Museum of San Francisco. It says only 12, but you got the Mental Health Association San Francisco, 198. You got T. Rowe Price layoffs coming soon. You got cutting EPA cutting workforce by at least 23%. Jaguar 500 management jobs. You got Kaiser Permanente. You get 42. So you have all these layoffs. Hawaii Airlines 252. You got banana giant Chiquita to lay off remaining 1,189 day workers in Panama. They're in Panama. I don't know. Is Panama considered America? I don't think so. No, that's part we own. Do we own that strait that doesn't? Well, I don't want to say own, because we don't. America just be trying to bully everybody. But I guess is that Panama? Was it the canal and all that stuff? I feel like the crazy president was talking about different things with that stuff. I don't know. So you got all these layoffs happening, right? So it's creating uncertainty. You have Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, 1,000 job cuts possible due to Fed handout funding cuts. So all these different job cuts, have either taken place or coming. And Chicago Public Schools, 114,000 workers, including more than 400 teachers. They said rehired, so they were but it's a question mark to see if they were rehired in August. So you have State Department, 1,800 layoffs coming soon. So you have like layoffs happening. You have possible rehiring if possible, but it's so much uncertainty, so many moving parts. So because of that, oh, there go my dad. Hey, Dad, you must have fell asleep probably. But because of that, you have, with all that happening, you have, this uncertainty, which in turn you have buyers sitting on the sideline because you don't know what's going to happen anytime soon. You have sellers that are frustrated because they feel like I want more than what my house is worth now. And now they're like, oh, let me trick you, and be that tricky seller and take my house off the market and then put it back on the market and take it off the market and put it back on, playing games like Corey West said, he has a seller playing games with him. So you have a lot of people just kind of playing games right now. It's just interesting. Assessor's site says there are 2 baths. Okay, so that means that he had it. So like you said, the inspector came. That means they permitted it. They mean that means, so I guess it has 2 baths now. So okay, so are you saying it says it has 2 baths, but you say you can't see you said the other bath doesn't look like a bath in the basement? Is that what you're trying to say? I don't know if I'm reading it right. David said, we built it, but we gave it back to Panama back in the 1970s. Okay, because I'm like, I feel like Panama something. That's what I was like, wait, did we do something with Panama? Okay, I was like, this is a real estate channel, so don't beat me up if my geography and my history is off, y'all. Please don't beat me up. But and so oh, thank you, David. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a great week. Thank you, David. I appreciate you as always. If you guys don't know, David is a realtor in the Omaha, Nebraska area. So please go over to his channel, give him a subscribe to his channel, tune into his lives. He has a wonderful guest over there. I gotta be like David and get some more wonderful guests over here, but David has some wonderful guests over there, and you guys won't be disappointed. You'll be in for a wonderful conversation, great chats, great information. So if you guys don't mind, if you're over in this channel and you haven't gone over to David's channel yet, please go give David a subscribe. It's Living in Omaha with David Matney. If you're out in Omaha, Nebraska, you're looking for a wonderful agent to have conversation with, facilitate you through any transactions, whether buying or selling, please reach out to David. He is a wonderful realtor and just a great resource of knowledge. So definitely reach out to him. And I appreciate you, David, for coming on the live and sending the super chat my way. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody else too. MH08 for always showing up. Corey West for being here as well. Give you guys some love, Corey West. And then, of course, my dad being here and everybody else that comes in that are not here tonight, that usually chats, and even people that just watch and they don't want to chat. I appreciate you guys just showing up on Sunday to have this conversation. MHOA said, can't imagine another bath. I've lived here 34 years. I know kind of where the sewer lines are. They are shallow in these parts. Would have to flush up from the basement. Oh wow, okay. So those rich Omaha realtors. So okay, so you're saying, because I know sometimes with certain houses too, you have to I think it's like a certain amount of rooms you can put in a house, certain amount of bathrooms you can put in a house, and things like that, as far as even a certain amount of people that can occupy said space because of the footage, the square footage, the layouts and the areas and everything. So all right, and so before we get off of here, I wanted to show something else too, because we talk about this all the time, minimum wage, and I pulled this minimum wage up, and I do want to do 2 housing things real quick, because I don't know if you guys watch. It's another YouTuber that I watch. His name is Todd Sachs. He has a wonderful YouTube channel too, Sachs Realty, and he put up these 2 houses online, and he showed like the reduction of the cost and prices, and they're not located in Georgia. They're located, one is in, I think, Boston, Massachusetts, the other one, North Carolina. But I was like, well, shoot, if he could pull them up and put the the stuff on the screen, then I can pull them up too. But I'll show you those so you guys can see how some prices might be adjusted in the area. And if you want to kind of look at it yourself, you can see that. But I also wanted to talk about the minimum wage. And this is why, too, this is another reason, too, in regards to why people can't really afford houses per se, right? Because look at the minimum wage. He said, we do not have occupancy limits anymore. Pandemic change. Okay, so you guys don't have it no more. Okay. All right. Yeah, because I know some typically they'll have that occupancy limit. Okay, so you guys don't have it. All right. That's interesting. They changed it. Wow. Are they is that because they want to get more people into the area, make it more dense, I guess I would say. So it says right here, the average state minimum wage in 2025 was $11.18, up from $10.69 in 2024, $10.47 from 2023, $9.85 for 2022. The top 5 highest 2024 statewide minimum wages were set to be as follow: $17.50 in Washington, D.C., $16.66 in Washington, $16.50 in California, $16.35 in Connecticut, and $15.50 in New York. The lowest, and this is what I always tell people, and I have this conversation all the time with my colleagues down here in Georgia, and they be like, yeah, and I tell you, people be wanting, they be arguing me down, y'all. People be arguing me down. And I'm like, I don't want to be in debates all the time, but I'm just like, I just be like, okay. Anyway. It says the lowest minimum wage based in the state on state law were $15.15 in Georgia and Wyoming. So this is what I tell my colleagues down here in Georgia, and we always have this conversation when it comes to them and the home prices down here, especially in the Metro Atlanta area. I'm like, do you guys not understand that state minimum wage in Georgia is $5.15? And because it's that low, they have to move it up. It says when the state rate is lower than the federal rate, the federal minimum wage is $7.25, supersedes the state law for most types of employees, but it says most types of employees. So we still have people down here that are working at, say, Waffle House or other type of jobs, waitresses, waiters, that get paid less than the minimum wage. So I'm like, how can affordability be $200-something thousand in Georgia when somebody could be making as low as $5.15 legally? Yeah, so, but people, they will argue me down. He said, the real minimum wage is zero. not zero. He said the real minimum wage is zero. It's shy from $19 in Denver. Okay. Corey West, thanks, Clark. Real estate is so stressful. Can't see how anyone will love it. Yeah, it's definitely, it could be stressful, but don't let it overwhelm you. Trust me, it's really, I tell people real estate is just understanding the numbers, just making sure you're comfortable where you want to be at, right? And understanding your numbers, and don't stretch yourself when it comes to purchasing a house. Because as you go on and as you pay that mortgage off and years go past that, right, you're still going to have property taxes unless the United States of America government does something to facilitate said property taxes. Like some countries, they don't have them. But just be mindful and know your numbers so you don't stress yourself out. And if you're working a current job, understand your numbers when it comes to retirement, possible Social Security, so you can see like, hey, as I get older and once my house is paid off, will I be able to maintain this with my property taxes and my home insurance, right? So I tell people, I love real estate, of course, but also I tell people in the midst of it, don't let it overwhelm you. Have a conversation with your realtor, have a conversation with your lender, understand your numbers, and don't stress yourself out and don't push yourself above your limit that you're comfortable with. All right. So hopefully that helped, Corey West. But it's a process. But so we'll get into this real quick. I don't want to keep you guys too long. So the minimum wage, like I said, as far as when it comes to Georgia, I don't understand why I have this conversation all the time. And I'm like, what they do down here, they'll have it's called the area medium income, which it'll say AMI. You guys possibly might have it in your state as well. It's called the AMI, is the area medium income. And what it does is that they'll take the wages in which people are making in this particular area. And also if somebody's making 6 figures, somebody's making, let's say, $20,000 a year, they'll say, oh, well, the medium income here is $80,000. And they'll say, because it's $80,000, people can buy $200,000 houses in this area. But it's like, no, everybody can't buy a $200,000 house. So it has to be some type of other way in which they kind of do those things. But this is breaking down the states as far as minimum wage. If you guys want to see real quick, Alabama $7.25 is still $7.25 in 2020. Alaska $11.73. So this is 2025. This is 2024. So the minimum wage has jumped in Alaska, Arizona $14.35 to $14.70. But it says initiative. So initiative is that I don't think it passed yet. I think they're trying to. Well, this says in 2024, so it might have passed. It says in 2026, but it says right here. So I don't know if initiative means that it passed or not. Don't get me to lying. But it says initiative, and then it says bill. So some of these might have passed, some of them might not have passed yet. Some of them might just be, trying to pass. Arkansas still $11, California $16.50, Colorado is $14.81, Connecticut $16.35, Delaware $15. Look like it was passed because it says bill. District of Columbia $17.50, Florida $14, Georgia nothing, because they're not doing nothing down here to save these Georgians. I don't know if I said it right. I'm like, we need to go to state. We need to go to state capital. We need to figure it out, y'all. Hawaii $14, Idaho $7.25, Illinois $15, Indiana $7.25, Iowa, Kansas $7.25, Kentucky $7.25, Louisiana $7.25. So be mindful that these is $7.25 because it's the federal situation, but in the state law, it might be lower than that. So it might not be $7.25 at state law. So just because it's $7.25 on like a federal situation doesn't mean, again, if you work at, let's say, the local restaurants in the area or the local Waffle House or whatever, you might be getting that minimum state wage of $5 or something. Maine $14.65, Maryland $15, Massachusetts $15, Michigan $12.48, Minnesota $11.13, Mississippi $7.25, Missouri $13.75, Montana $10.55, Nebraska $13.50. Again, these are initiatives. I don't know if the bill's passed or not, you guys. Sorry. Nevada $12, New Hampshire $7.25, New Jersey $15.49, Mexico $12, New Mexico, sorry, New York $15.50, North Carolina $7.25, North Dakota $7.25, Ohio $10.70, Oklahoma $7.25, Oregon $14.70, Pennsylvania $7.25, Rhode Island $15, South Carolina $7.25, South Dakota $11.50, Tennessee $7.25, Texas $7.25, Utah $7.25, Vermont $14.01, Virginia $12.41, Washington $16.66, West Virginia $8.75, Wisconsin $7.25, Wyoming $7.25. So with those minimum wages, you guys, if somebody is trying to buy a house and they are stuck to that minimum wage with these barely getting a raise, barely any increases, and at their jobs, I don't know how they're going to buy a house. So it's going to be more sellers delisting their property. 1881 in the city of Denver. Wonder why so many restaurants are closing. They closing because they can't afford the 1881. That's the problem. It's the problem. They can't afford it. It's almost like a catch-22, right? MHOA. It's like we have to pay people more money because of inflation and what's happening right in the world in order for people to sustain and live. However, it becomes a catch-22 in the sense of when you pay more money, if you don't up the cost of the food or the stuff in the restaurants, and you have to offset in order to make a return in order to stay open. And, so that's kind of like the catch-22. But again, people have to sustain to be able to live. And I don't feel like as a person, whether it don't matter where you live at, whether it be America, Japan, wherever you live at, I feel like you shouldn't have to work more than one job to sustain a lifestyle. I don't feel like you should have to work more than one job to, whether you're renting, whether you have a mortgage, whether you have a car, whether you have children, whatever. I don't feel like as a person in life, you have to work more than one job to sustain an actual living as a human being on this earth, no matter where you're at, from America to Japan. Minimum wage was never intended to support a household. Yeah, it never was. It never was. And I just don't feel like people should have to do that. He said, my $8 Chinese entree is now $14. Yeah, I'm like, they had to go up on the price probably, and I don't even know, like I said, it could be a catch-22. They might have went up on the price because they needed to give more money to their employees, or they might have went up on the price because of the tariffs. There's so many different moving parts of why people do stuff, and and why prices go up. And we know over time prices typically go up, right? We know that. We know from what stuff was in 1925 is not the same as it is in 2020 and 2025. But it's like how people still need to sustain a living without having to work hard and break their back, right? And never see their children if they have kids to be able to come home and all these things. So anyway, let's get to this, and then I'm gonna get off of here because I don't want to waste too much of your time, and then I don't want this. So this was a property. This shows like how much the property was listed for. So again, if you guys are possibly buying a house right now, and if you want to see if the seller took the house off, put it back on, you can go to the Redfin website, you can go to realtor.com website, you can go to Zillow, you can go down to the history. And I know a lot of people are doing this nowadays where they're going to the history. And so when this person listed this house originally, so they bought, let's go back here. So they bought it, and again, this ain't, it really don't matter because it's not going to go back to this price, which kind of, it sucks. But we'll look at it for, for the giggles of it all. They bought it in 2018 for the person listed it in 2017 for 170. The investor probably bought it for 125. I don't know. I'm thinking it might be an investor. Bought it for 125 in 2018. And then they rented it out. Oh yeah, so it's an investor. They rented it out. And then they turned around, they decided they want to sell it. So they put it on market in 2025 for 365. And then they couldn't get nothing for 365. They decreased it to 327. Then they decreased it again to 300,000. So it was a $65,000 drop as far as decrease in price, which means that was about, let's see, how much of a percentage of that is that? What's that? Let's do 300 divided by 360. That's 8,200 minus 82. That's what, 18%. So that was an 18% drop as far as price. So prices are definitely dropping. Like I said, builders are slashing prices. Reseller, people who are selling their home on the resale market, they're dropping prices. And they're saying like, okay, how do we get a buyer to feel comfortable enough to come in and buy this, property? So they dropped that house right there, $65,000. So you got an 18% drop there with that house. That was in North Carolina. This one is in Boston, Massachusetts. We're gonna look at this real quick. And so this is crazy. I don't know if they try to sell it. It's just so interesting when you see it not so long ago. So in 1989, they bought that. This house was bought for 125, which is crazy, 125,000. I didn't even see how much the square footage was before I went down because I don't want to show their address. They bought for 125, according to Realtor.com. I don't know how accurate this is. This is in Boston, Massachusetts, because I'm not in their public records or in the MLS. And then it looked like because of the housing crash, the financial housing, the housing crash in 2007, 2008, 2009, it went all the way down to $90,000. So it was at 125. So it's not really much of a drop down at that time. $90,000. And like if somebody really goes and starts to dissect this, they're gonna be like, oh my God, this is crazy. Because so I always tell people, yes, you can look at the history, but you're gonna be depressed once you go up to what it's selling for now. So don't dig too far into the history. Just look at the comparables, what's going on in the area, look at the market trends and everything, because what somebody got in 2008, that's $90,000, and now in 2025, they listed at $831,000. So if you look at the 90,000 compared to 2025, you would be about to bop yourself in the head. But so they had at 831. They couldn't get anybody, so they reduced it to 750. So they took an $81,000 drop right there. Still couldn't get nobody. Well, it says listing was removed. So it looked like what they did is they took it off of the market. After it says after 15 days, they took it off the market. Then they put it back on the market in June for $699, so it reduced some more. And then they took it off the market again. And then June 28th, they put it back on for $599. So the reason why sometimes realtors will do that, I'm pretty sure you guys probably noticed, is that they do that because what it does is it repopulates in the MLS. And so when you take it off, withdraw it, or if it expires out in the system, you can then put it back in at a lower price. It'll filter back into the MLS, which in turn will filter back onto the different third-party websites. It'll come up as if it was a new listing. Some of these third-party websites like Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin, you'll see where it'll say a price reduction or a price kind of, reduced, but they do that to try to re-hit the algorithm, push things back up and back in people's like MLS searches and everything. Let's see the house real quick. So anyway, needless to say, it was at $831. It's down to $599. That's about a $232,000 price drop, which is about like 28% of a price drop. So, people have to cut their prices if they want to get people to buy houses. Let's see if we can see what the house look like without me. Well, I think the address going to end up popping up, but it is what it is. Shoot. So this is the house. Oh my God. This is the house. I don't know how it looks on the screen on y'all end. It's kind of horrible looking on my end. Can I see all photos? Let me see. So this is the house. This is interesting. This is Boston, Massachusetts. I'm not. I guess this is what the houses are worth over there. I'm like, this look like this needs to be. This ain't even a that. This look like this needs to be renovated. This look like an old house for $599,000. Look at that jacuzzi. That look dirty. Look at this, the wall. The wall looked like they were working on a house. They just left it, to stop working on it. And they had, what the heck? And they was trying to sell this for $831,000, and all this needs to be repaired and fixed. And they sold this for $599. Look at this. So I wonder, I guess an investor, I don't know if an investor bought it, if there was a homeowner who bought it, took out some type of, construction loan or whatever they did. I don't know. I can't see the back records. And they look like they was trying to redo or renovate per se, and they just left it like that. Well, needless to say, this house that's $599,000. You can get this house in Boston, Massachusetts. But I want to thank you guys again for tuning in on this Sunday night. I know you guys could be anywhere watching anything, but you tuned in tonight to have this conversation with myself about real estate. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We love to have you in the chat box every Sunday here at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Also, if you're watching this video on a replay, don't forget to comment below, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Remember, when you hit the like button, even if you don't watch the video, it helps us to get through the algorithm. Of course, I would love for you to watch the video, even if you want to put me on mute and walk away from the TV to give us some viewing time so we can help to push this channel a little bit more. And also, don't forget to comment below. Next Sunday, we should be talking to our home insurance agent. We'll talk more about home insurance. She'll also talk a little bit about commercial insurance. So if anybody has thoughts of entering that commercial market, whether it be like 5+ units or more, commercial wise, she will have your questions ready to ask questions in regards to that part of insurance. And then if you have any other insurance questions in regards to homeowners insurance, have that ready as well. So I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Thank you, MH08, for tuning in. As always, Corey West, I appreciate you. I think David had to run, but David, thank you for coming and tuning in tonight. My dad, James Clark. And I think that's all we had in the chat box tonight. But I appreciate everybody for coming in tonight. And I will see you next Sunday. Don't be a stranger and don't be scared to comment on the lives, because we love to have conversation amongst each other. All right. Take care, you guys. Happy Sunday.